And now that we're done with the championship discussions, let's get into the quick hitters of UFC 296. Big performances through and through, big fights through and through. We're going to start in the welterweight division with someone we talked about earlier in the show, Shavkat Rakhmonov. 18 fights, 18 victories, 18 finishes. Shavkat Rakhmonov is special. I talked about it on Friday, just how special he is, and I continue to talk about it today with this victory he had over Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. He came in ranked number 5, Wonderboy number 6, minus 700 favorite, and throughout this fight, he just made it look easier and easier and easier. The first round was a bit slow. A lot of grappling, clinching up against the cage, not a ton of damage from the side of Shavkat. But when you get into that second round, you kind of did see, oh, wow, he really wore on Stephen Thompson. So it didn't look like much happened in the first round, but he made him tired and he drowned him in the second round. He got the finish with just 4 seconds left in that second round, submitted him with a rear naked choke. The first person to ever submit Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Shavkat is as well-rounded as you're going to come. Now, again, this streak is crazy, right? He has 10 submissions, 8 knockouts. He can get it done everywhere. When he submitted Jeff Neal, he did it standing on the feet after a back and forth just banger. This guy has progressively took the proper steps up in competition, especially in the latter 3 of the rankings. You go from Neil Magny to Jeff Neal to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and you get this on a featured spot of the last pay-per-view of the year, a big pay-per-view that have a ton of eyes on it. This is a huge opportunity and a big kind of grasp of momentum for Shavkat to carry in to 2024. Now, I talked about it already in the championship discussion for Leon that it's between Bilal and Shavkat. Bilal probably should get it, but I wouldn't be surprised one bit, and neither would the people, according to our Twitter poll, that Shavkat can very well get in there and be the next championship contender for Leon. Now, if he's not, I'm not going to throw a fit. If Bilal gets that opportunity, good on him, because let's talk about some of the rankings and potential fights that could be next for Shavkat, assuming he doesn't get that championship opportunity. So, I mean, you look at it right now, and the pickings are slim because, he's not going to fight Bilal next. I mean, maybe the UFC could just pair up Bilal and Shavkat and really say, hey, someone become the number 1 contender for sure. But I lean toward the fact that will not happen. I just think one of them will get a title shot and the other will not, and they'll have to fight someone else. Now, who could that someone else be? Well, we're talking Shavkat here. Gilbert Burns seems to be a great name, but there's a wrench there because he got booked a fight that we're going to talk about later on in the show. So who does that leave in the top 5? Kamaru Usman, the former champion of the world, but there's a little bit of a wrench there as well because he just fought at 185 pounds against Khamzat Chimaev. He looked like a middleweight fighter, albeit, and maybe, just maybe, he will stay at middleweight to finish out his career. Now, if he does not, I would love to see him and Shavkat go at it. If he stays at 185, what the heck do you do with Shavkat? Does he really need to fight backwards? Because he's made such just proper evolution and steps up progressively throughout his UFC career thus far. Maybe just to stay active. But I have a feeling the UFC knows how special of a talent they have here. They have a great big market behind him. And he is very, very elite. So it's going to be an interesting discussion about what could come next for Shavkat Rakhmonov. Let me know what you guys think. Should he just get the title fight over Bilal? Should he fight Bilal and maybe Leon just kind of waits to the side and see who wins that one? There's a lot of maneuvering that needs to happen between Bilal and Shavkat, and then who each of them would face next, whoever doesn't get the title fight. Let me know what you think the proper next steps are for both, but especially here, the guy on the night that got the victory in Shavkat Rakhmonov. Then we have to talk about the next fight on the card. Paddy the Baddy Pimblett gets a big victory over Tony Ferguson. And, that lose-lose situation that Paddy talked about coming into this fight shows to be very true here because it was not that great of a fight, to be quite honest. First round was great for what it's worth. First round was very incredible. Tony looked good, right? And then Paddy just started landing big-time shots the last minute or two of that round. Looked like it was the beginning of the end for Tony. To Tony's credit, he survived. Looked like Paddy got very tired very fast in rounds 2 and especially rounds 3. So he kind of just held top control for a majority of the final 10 minutes. But nevertheless, Paddy Pimblett is now 5-0 in the UFC. That is the biggest win of his career at 28 years old, beating Tony Ferguson. I think, I said on Friday that I agreed with the lose-lose thing, right? I felt like the only way it wasn't a lose-lose and there was a little bit of glimmer of, positivity for Paddy here is if he got a big-time finish. And while he got close to that, he didn't. He couldn't finish the person in Tony that he had injured and kind of gassed throughout the remainder of the fight. So it was a weird one for Paddy Pimblett. It was his first fight back after a year-long layoff. I believe he had some surgeries in the time between fights. His last fight, a lot of people thought he lost with Jared Gordon. So you pair these together, it's not been a great year for Paddy Pimblett, but a win is a win. 28 years old, just now getting ready to enter into those prime years, 29 to 33, 34. And let's see what the UFC does with Paddy. He's had a very kind of just level career so far through 5 fights in the UFC. There's not been a big jump in competition. The biggest jump was going from, I guess, Jordan Levitt to Jared Gordon. Not that that's like a very big leap, but it's at least somewhat of a leap. And then I guess you could say there's a jump from Jared Gordon to Tony Ferguson, but Tony Ferguson has now lost 7 fights in a row, so maybe it's not that big of a jump. Name value-wise, huge jump. So credit where credit is due there. I do think it's time for Paddy to fight someone in the back half of the top 15, though. Whether it's a Drew Dober, a Bobby Green, I know Renato Moicano's booked, but names like that, I don't see the reason to give him anyone else outside the rankings. I know there's great fighters on the outside looking in. Joao Alvarez comes to mind. There are, guys there. Terrence McKinney is at lightweight. That'd be a fantastic, amazing fight on paper. So if he doesn't get a top 15 guy, I'd like it to be someone like those 2 names I just mentioned. But regardless of this performance, it's still a big win. He's a star in the making, name value-wise, and on the mic. He's from the UK, huge fan base behind him overseas there. There is potential here with Paddy, but that discussion about hype versus skill remains the same. The hype is still higher in terms of his stardom and where he is, but his skills haven't quite reached or exceeded it yet. If he ever gets there, like I said on Friday, big time things are coming. If he never does reach it, there will come a moment in one of these fights where he will get put away or just lose in general and really halt the progress that he's making. So let's see what the UFC will do with Paddy the Baddy heading into 2024. And it seems clear what the UFC and Uncle Dana want to do with Tony Ferguson. In the post-fight presser, Dana says after this 7-fight skid, he would really like to see Tony Ferguson hang up the gloves and call it a career. They're going to have some discussions with him, I'm sure. Tony, being the guy that he is, will want to just keep fighting until the wheels fall off. And I'm not in the position to ever tell someone when to hang up the gloves, when to retire from this brutal, gruesome fight game. But when Dana begins to say it, you know that there's some pretty serious weight behind it and some serious discussions that need to be had. Josh Emmett had one of the most brutal, most devastating knockouts I have ever seen watching UFC and mixed martial arts. In just under 2 minutes, he landed a brutal overhand right that sent Bryce Mitchell straight to the canvas, stiffened him up like a board, and even had him convulsing in the cage. It was a very, very scary thing. Dana has come out and said that Bryce is okay. He passed all of his tests. Bryce took this fight on short notice. Heal up, rest. Don't worry about getting in there anytime soon. People are going to tune in to watch Bryce Mitchell fight. Love him or hate him, he has eyeballs on him. But UFC 296 belonged to Josh Emmett. You want to talk about a guy that needed something like this for his career to rejuvenate him, to make him feel like he still belongs. This was it right here. Coming off of back-to-back losses, an interim title fight loss where he got submitted by Yair Rodriguez, a beat down that he suffered against Ilia Topuria back in June, where there was a 50-42 scorecard by Topuria, who's going on in February to fight Volkanovski for the title. Those are back-to-back hard losses for someone that's 38 years old. And then, bam, one shot changes everything, changes the way that he is viewed right now in this division. He will hold his spot at number 6, maybe even after a knockout like this, bump up a spot or two. It was that nasty. If you haven't seen it, you need to go see it. He's the most powerful man at featherweight. I mean, it's without question. This isn't the first time we've seen Josh Emmett land a disgusting knockout. Just go back a couple of years ago when he knocked out Michael Johnson, sent his mouthpiece flying into the 5th row of the stands. I mean, this guy carries power, and he's been carrying power for years now. This was a big, big bounce back for Josh Emmett. I can't help but feel happy for the guy. He's battled injuries and knees, and then he gets his opportunity to fight for the belt and loses. I mean, he's been through the ups and downs of this game. And to do this at nearly 40 years old at a lower weight class is pretty impeccable. And he's such a big, muscular guy. It's a shame he doesn't carry just a little bit more length and height, because he probably could make 155 and have some fun fights there. But he's just a very short and stocky natured guy. So what a win. What a knockout. Excited to see what could come next for Josh Emmett. And then throughout the rest of the card, just quickly to touch on some other great winners. Irene Aldana and Carol Rosa, number 5 Aldana, number 9 Rosa in the bantamweight division, had one of the best fights of the year and probably the best female mixed martial arts fight of 2023. It was unbelievable. Back and forth war. Neither one of them looked like themselves when this fight ended. They were in the hospital together, had one of those infamous pictures we get every so often with two fighters that just went to war and now share that moment forever with one another. That's what they did here. One of the best female fights that you'll see ever, and definitely in quite some time. Aldana did get the victory, and that was a big win for her. I said on Friday, the division is in the post-Amanda Nunes era, so it was good to see. We have this matchup. Miesha Tate won last week. We have a title fight coming up in January, and I believe now Aldana has won 3 of her last 4 fights. The only loss was a championship effort to Amanda Nunes in what was her retirement fight. So we shall see what comes next for Aldana, but a great fight and a big bounce back victory following a title shot loss. Cody Garbrandt picked up his 2nd win in a row and got his first knockout since 2020 when he knocked out Brian Boom Kelleher in 3 minutes and 42 seconds in the prelims. Big time spot for Cody to show he still carries that great striking that we've known him for in the past and still carries some big power. Brian Kelleher had only been knocked out one other time prior to this, so that was a pretty big statement by Cody. And what does he do? He follows it up by calling out the new bantamweight and former flyweight champion, someone he was scheduled to fight for the flyweight title against before falling out due to injury, Deiveson Figueiredo. That's a ballsy call out for Cody. He is on the outside looking in, not even ranked right now technically at bantamweight. I would imagine come Tuesday he finds himself in the top 15 again. Since, he dabbled down at 125, has came back up now. Big win here. Maybe they throw him back in. I don't think that they would do him and Deiveson, but then again, it was already booked once. Now they're both at 135. Deiveson beat Rob Font, so he's in the top 10 now at 135. That could be a big one. Maybe a fight night main event for 5 rounds, or another spot on a pay-per-view card potentially between those two. I was a little iffy when I first heard him say it last night, but after sleeping on it, I should say, now on Sunday, I'm okay with it. I think it would be a pretty fan-friendly fight. A lot of intrigue, a lot of questions. Cody Garbrandt, Deiveson Figueiredo. Didn't get it a couple years ago. Let's get it now. Ariane Lipski got a huge win. She got her 3rd straight victory and became the first person to ever finish Casey O'Neill. Back-to-back losses for the once undefeated Casey. She's going to go back to the drawing board now. She was number 12. Lipski's going to probably take that spot from her come Tuesday morning. Been a long time coming for Lipski. We've seen flashes of how good she is. She poses dangerous threats with finishing prowess as well. This is a nice opportunity for her to beat a relatively big name prospect, regardless, at flyweight. She's going to earn her stripes into the division's rankings. And then before that, other big finishes. Number 12 ranked Tagir Ulanbekov submitted number 15 ranked Cody Durden at flyweight. Andre Feely had a nasty knockout against Lucas Almeida. And Shamil Gaziev made his UFC debut, improved to 12-0, and knocked out Martin Buday to kick off the night. So that's it. UFC 296 is in the books, which means the UFC calendar for 2023 is also in the books. We now wait until January 13th when we get the next UFC fight night. So we will see what happens over the next month, what type of news will come, what type of fight announcements will come. Stay tuned here on the channel, and I will try my best to get out as much content as I can over the course of this hiatus. If you enjoyed this recap, be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new so you don't miss recaps like this, breakdowns, and news and fight announcements for mixed martial arts, as I previously alluded to. Follow us on social media on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at the BAJ MMA. Even follow us on your favorite audio podcasting platform of choice if you like longer form, all put together content rather than separate videos. Or if there's ever a time where it's more convenient, just follow on here and on the audio platforms. Get the best of both worlds, whatever works best for you. But any support is appreciated. I hope you guys have a great week, and I'll catch you in the next video, whatever it may be. News, fight announcements, we shall see.